right. I wasn't 100% sure how to make this video, but I'm going to give it my best shot, and I have some notes that I'm going to be reading at the bottom. So I'm titling my video, Intimate Partner Violence and Christianity, What Women of the Faith Should Know. And I am kind of targeting this specifically at women in the church, especially women in very conservative denominations of the church. So, like, I grew up Southern Baptist. There are the Church of Christ, are particularly known for being very conservative in their views of gender roles, and I'm talking to these women specifically. I think it is important to acknowledge and accept that some of the traditional scripture standards of gender roles have changed over time, and I have personally had a hard time accepting that, but it's not right to downgrade yourselves and your worth because of religious teachings. I have worked in churches. I actually do work at a church, my husband and I both, and we've been very conscious in trying to combat this negative view of women that the church has. I've seen pastors preach entire sermons, an entire series on the submissiveness of women. And they usually always go to the same scripture that says, wives, submit to your husbands as the head of your body, as Christ is the head of the church. And that scripture is just thrown out all the time, that wives need to submit because your husband is the head of you, that he is in charge of you, that he should make all of the decisions for you. And I tell you that frankly, that is not true, especially today in 2020. Like, that is an outdated model of looking at it. A lot of times, I noted this in my discussion board, they love to just preach and preach and preach on wives submit to your husbands, but the very next verse is husbands love your wives as Christ loves the church. Like, that is an extreme love. Love your wives in the same intensity and the same just amazing amount of love that Christ loves the church. That's how much your husband needs to love you. And one thing that my husband and I always talk about is that equal does not mean the same. My husband and I are equals. We are equals in our family. We are equals in our marriage. He is not above me. Your husband is not above you. He is not better than you. He is not more worthy of you or more controlling or more dominant because he is a man. That is simply not true. That is something that the men who founded this church came up with. He is not better than you because he is a man. He is not more than you because he is a man. You are equal in your marriage. But equal doesn't mean you're the same. It doesn't mean you're going to have all of the same traits or the same qualities. But you need to be strong in your faith and know that God did not make you inferior. He doesn't make people less important or less loved or less significant just because they are women. That is false. I think that people need to think of, okay, wives submit to your husbands. I think in the 21st century, that might be more geared towards wives be supportive of your husband. Wives be emotionally supportive of your husband. Not that you need to submit in every single thing. Not that you need to submit your finances. Not that you need to submit sexually. Not that you need to submit just all of the decisions that you make to him. You guys need to be equals in those decisions. But you can submit to, really, I just think of it as submit as far as you want to, as far as you're comfortable with. If he is demanding that you do something that you're not comfortable with, now he is not exemplifying the kind of love that the scripture commands. The scripture commands that husbands love their wives as Christ loves the church. And as soon as he starts pushing you to submit to things that you're not comfortable with, now he is violating the scripture himself. So you need to look at yourself and how you interpret the scripture as, okay, I'm going to submit to my husband. But you need to be able to analyze him under the same view of the scripture. Well, is he loving me as Christ loves the church? Because this is a two-way street. you can't only be submitting and him not loving you in that godly type love. That's not fair to you. It's not fair for him to do that to you. And I think that more women in the church really need to internalize this. They need to realize that in way too many situations, especially here in the South, especially in conservative denominations, women are experiencing domestic violence in the name of Scripture, in the name of, well, she needs to submit, and so I can do this to her. That's not right. And you need to accept that that's happening to other women. You need to accept that that might be happening to you. That's really hard to deal with. That's really hard to hear, but it is 100% true. Spend some time in the gospel. Spend some time in the Scripture. Become closer in your faith and start to interpret that Scripture in your own mindset and not what you hear men tell you. Most pastors are men. Most church leaders in the church are men. And they're going to interpret the Scripture in a way that benefits them. Spend some time in the Word. Spend some time in prayer. Spend some time analyzing your views of the Scripture and of faith. And start thinking of how this can benefit you. Start thinking about what you deserve as a woman and not how horrible you are because you're a woman. You need to accept that God made you beautifully and wonderfully made, and that that's amazing. And he didn't make you inferior to your husband just because you're a woman. God makes everyone in his own likeness, men and women. So, I hope that's what this video is kind of supposed to be like. I hope I didn't get off on a tangent, but like, to women in the church, just know your value. God didn't make you less. You can be equal, but not the same. And that's something that I actually feel really passionate about. So I really enjoyed making this video because that's something that I talk about frequently in my regular everyday life. So thanks. Bye.